I have several ideas of things I'd like to invent. I'd like to invent new chemistry processes to harness energy from resources that we take for granted today. For example, I've heard about how cold fusion has supposedly failed, but I've actually read that cold fusion has actually succeeded, but the invention was bought up by large corporations and basically buried because the large corporations, the oil companies, for example, don't want people having free energy that they could not profit from. And I've heard about machines that can process everything from garbage to extra gases that we don't use, or even techniques for processing basically crude oil and or even tar or even oil into much more accessible, much more efficient forms than we use now. Basically, one of the big things that I would like to have is have some kind of way that inventors could get what they create on the market without big corporations buying them up and then telling people that they couldn't have it, without big corporations or bad actors denying the world of these inventions. Because I really think, and I've thought this for a very long time, that a lot of things, a lot of techniques that we use, for example, everything from the internal combustion engine to basically everything, so for example, building techniques and material science and so forth, has been pretty much the same for far too long than it should have been. And I've always thought that there was a lot of technologies that should have advanced past what they were long ago. Everything from energy transmission to simple electronics to especially energy. And getting on that same subject, one thing I'd really like to see is I'd like to see our infrastructure, for example, our power grid, our information infrastructure, that needs to be modernized, and that needs to be upgraded, and that needs more technology invented to allow that to go into the future. Nikola Tesla claims back in his day, in the late 19th century, that he invented a way to transmit energy wirelessly. And I'd like to see what became of that, if that had ever been totally perfected. And I would like to see so many other things. Thank you.
Thank you, Gino.
What?
John McCormick, welcome back. Would you
Thank you.
mind coming up and just take 2 minutes to tell us about yourself again? It's been a long time since we've seen you. If you don't mind, just give us a brief intro.
No, not at all. I am John McCormick, back, and I'm signing up this time. Your president was very persistent in tracking me down, and so I'm gonna sign up. But anyway, I grew up in Southie, moved to Quincy. I knew Dan's, when I moved to Quincy, I but I met Dan's father, and it's such a small world. Dan's father knew my father well, and by the time I moved to Quincy, my father had passed, but he always had nice things to say about my father, and Dan's father was a top shelf guy, as I learned. Meaning, A number one. It speaks for itself. But so I live in Quincy now, and I work for the MBTA, and I'm going to be the project manager on Wollaston Station. And there's a lot of people that use Wollaston that don't want to see it shut down, but our experience at the T is we used to renovate stations and keep it open, but it just prolongs the misery for so long. It's better to shut a station down and do all the work and then open it up. We can do it a lot faster without the public going into the station. So I'm coming back to improve my speaking skills because it needs a lot of improving. And I look forward to becoming a member of the Quantapowit. Is that how you say it?
Yes, Quantapowit.
Yeah. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Ron. Thank you. Ryan, I think you were probably one of our younger members, if not the youngest, and probably
Thank you, Ed.
at least for the closest to your educational experience. So in this day in 1958, Cliff Notes were introduced into United States schools. And I know that they were pretty much forbidden when I was in school. We couldn't use them. But could you tell us about, in your educational history, what kind of study habits you had, or what kind of tricks did you develop to help you study better?
Absolutely. All right. Thank you, Tabletopics Master. So, Cliff Notes. If I remember correctly, in middle school and high school, we could actually just go online, cliffnotes.com, and we could look up like book summaries and everything. This is the same thing. All right, great. So we used to be able to cheat on all our book reports, and we could just look it all up. All the teachers would have the printouts of the book notes, so they could look at it and look at your book report and be like, okay, he didn't read. That's enough. Copyright. So we had to learn like pretty quickly how to get around that. I was actually a terrible student all the way through college. I never put any effort into anything. That's just the way I grew up. I got out of high school with a 3.7, and somehow I managed a 3.0 in college too, without really studying or anything like that. Once I got into the real world though, I realized that that just doesn't cut it when you're working for a company. So what I've actually learned, and probably the best example is when I was with my last company doing door-to-door sales, we had to learn a 28-page script from anything from introducing the various products we had to how to overcome certain objections, how to handle the presentation. We had a 60-point PowerPoint slide we had to go through. So that was the biggest challenge I've ever had, trying to learn something. And the best way, believe it or not, is just reading it and memorizing it over and over and over again. So I read those 28 pages. I could actually, right now, do the whole script, even though I haven't done it in 2 months. And I could tell you the whole pitch from beginning to end. It would take 2.5 hours, and I only got 2 minutes. But I can do all that for you guys. So what I would do to practice that, I would memorize 1 page at a time. And I would look at myself in the mirror and say it over and over and over again, because it's really awkward when you stare at yourself in the mirror. And if you can get it down staring at yourself in the mirror, when you're looking at someone saying a speech over and over and over again right in their face, it's nothing, because you've already done it to yourself. So that would be my best advice to anyone trying to learn or memorize something. Is you just keep repetition. Repetition's everything. And saying it out loud. You can say it in your head, you can read it, but if you write it down and if you say it out loud, it's going to stick. Actually, one thing I did want to bring up too, it actually has to do with the question you asked Kevin. This is something that's actually helped me out. It's a quote that I saw the other day, and that I thought it pertained to a little bit of both of what we had, but it's actually from Benjamin Franklin. It says, "Tell me and I forget. Teach me and I remember, but involve me and I learn." So that's all. I'll finish that.
Thank you very much for that quote. Ducia,
Yes.
I would like to ask you if you have any plans for the Memorial Day weekend holiday.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
I've been about Toastmasters and welcome guests. What if I have plans for Memorial Day? As far as I know, Memorial Day is a Monday. Unfortunately, I'm working on that day, so I don't have plans for that day, but I learned throughout the year that any holiday that's important to me, if I'm working or off school on that day, I just postpone or reschedule my plans for either the weekend before or after that. I can still enjoy myself